Yeah, so I guess quick intro is I'm Teresa. I'm VP External for Agda VR. And if you guys don't know what Agda VR is, we are a student group on campus who works with students and faculty members to create educational VR tools. And I'm also a member of Eyemole.
And I'm Yana, and I'm just a member of Eyemole. So today we're going to tell you a little bit more about what this weird group called Eyemole is all about. So Eyemole is one of the student groups working at the Emerging Media Lab. And we encompass students from many different departments who have several different skills. So we have people who are working on VR and AR development, like other projects at the Emerging Media Lab. We have people who are interested in undergraduate research. We have people who are coming from a more arts background, and our fearless leader is Dr. Risu. So what do we do, and what brings us all together coming from such different backgrounds? So our work lies at the intersection of several cutting-edge technologies, and the first of them is virtual reality. And I'm pretty sure that virtual reality needs no introduction for the people in the room. And you're all aware of the potential of this technology, but one of the things that virtual reality can do is that it can generate experiences that in many ways can feel very real to the person who's in this experience, even though the world is virtual. So for example, if you've done something that tries to explore the fear of heights and you're like falling down from somewhere, it can feel very scary, and you can experience something that we hope is like a real emotion. So then the other cutting-edge technology that comes into play is brain-computer interfaces. So that might be a term that not everyone is familiar with, but basically a brain-computer interface is a system that takes some signal from your brain and does something with it. So it sounds very futuristic, and the technology is not quite there yet, but there has been a lot of developments in that field recently, and it's becoming a little bit more mainstream. So what we hope to get out of this technology is the possibility of capturing the real feeling that is elicited by the immersive virtual reality experience, and somehow transform it into some sort of like super engaging experience. And also, if you think about it, because brain-computer interfaces can ideally allow one to control their environment just by thought alone, it could become eventually a very intuitive form of input. Because instead of, say, having to grab an object and press buttons to interact with it, you could just think about it. And then
the final intersection is art. So we're all artists in this Eyemole group, and besides the projects that we make, which we consider art, we also create webcomics. So for the webcomics, what we try to do, one of our goals as Eyemole members is to get people more interested and more aware of virtual reality and brain-computer interfaces, because not that many people know what that is. So we find articles and research but done by people who have the intersection of VR and EG, or in general just like BCI or VR, and we create webcomics to make it more manageable for the normal person to consume. We also do 3D modeling and create really cool virtual landscapes.
Yeah, because we know that maybe at this moment the intersection of the technologies is not quite there yet, but if we bring in our art skills to make it more manageable for the general public, we can bring many very smart and capable people together and achieve our ultimate goal of just making people's heads explode. So what is the actual Eyemole development project that we're working on? Right now, Eyemole is not just like one big long-term project. So far, it's been more like kind of a project sketchbook of sorts. So we have tended to operate in the format of someone has like this cool idea of what if we could do this, and then someone else is like, oh yeah, that sounds cool, let's try it out. For example, one of our very first projects was this project called Mineswiper, where one day one of us came up with this weird idea of what if we, instead of, I don't know, swiping left and right on Tinder, could just do it based on your neural signal. So kind of like the future of online dating. So we made a very simple app that would have you swipe left or right on Tinder that would be based on your brain speak response. And of course, that's very limited in the fact that you don't know whether the response was strong because you're really into this face that you have been shown, or you really don't like it, or you're really afraid of it. So it's something that we might be working on in the future and or incorporate in other biometric signals. And then one of our other main projects.
Yeah, the other project we worked on is Mind Maze, and during the initialization of Eyemole in the beginning of summer, we kind of did a mini hackathon as a group to do some team bonding and things like that. So one of the ideas we wanted to play around with was, what if you can control a game just by thinking about it? And we started off with really simple games. We were thinking about having like a candle and like seeing the flame grow bigger or smaller, or maybe trying to get a cup to pour water into another cup kind of thing. But we ended up sticking to the maze. And the maze is pretty simple. It rotates either left or right based on the asymmetry of your brain response. So if your right hemisphere is more active than your left hemisphere, it'll turn left, right, one of the directions. And so for future work, we would like to have more adaptive controls. Like, so maybe instead of just having it be left and right, maybe you can have it go forward and back as well. And just more features, maybe harder mazes. And probably instead of having a square, we'd like to have a circular maze. And that will be demoed by the end of this presentation.
Yeah, and then another project that we just wanted to tell people about is this project currently called Brain Internet. So for that, to be honest, one of our main inspirations was just the fact that we found out that WebVR existed and we thought it was cool. And we thought, what if we could send EEG data and translate it directly into a WebVR experience? And one of the benefits of it is that it can be accessed through many different types of devices and on different types of VR headsets. So right now what we have in progress is just like a 3D plot of the user's raw EEG data, and it's in a very simple WebVR scene. But in the future, we're thinking of how we can make use of other web technologies. So part of the appeal of WebVR is that it might be easier to create a multiplayer experience or like use online databases and stuff like that.
One of the final things Eyemole does is we try to get people more involved with this field of VR and EEG by creating workshops. So there's this huge fear that like, oh my gosh, I don't know computer science, so I can't really do these cool things, but we are here to help you. So we lead people through Unity workshops, and we show people how to use the Muse headband to collect EEG data and then use it in a VR environment. And we've so far collaborated with Cognitive Systems Society and Neurotech X. We had 2 workshops last week. The one with Cognitive Systems Society was a really basic, like how to do Vive in general, like how to build a VR scene. And then with the Neurotech X workshop, we actually incorporated EEG data. And since it was Halloween time, so we had a little spooky island, and you made ghosts float depending on your EEG data. And next week, we're going to have another workshop, and it's going to be Google Cardboard based. And so we'll teach you guys how to make a 360 photo sphere and then make the colors change depending on your brain signals. And we also have a demo for that too. And if you're interested in the workshop, you should totally sign up for it. It's next Friday.
Okay, so we just told you that about a bunch of things that we currently do, so we might as well show you one of them.
Yeah.
And pray that it works.
We'll see if it works. We also have cardboards that we could pass around to people.
That's true, yeah.
Let's see if this one. And if you guys have any questions, feel free to
we might as
ask
well
us.
use this awkward time to answer any questions that you guys might have. And also, if people have like any possible ideas for what we could do with these technologies, as you might have realized by now, we're open to suggestions. Yeah.
So how noisy is the signal that is coming from the
Sorry?
sensor? So when you receive data, so you're controlling based on the...
Yeah.
Yeah. So how noisy can you easily discretize the input that is reading, or do you have like is easier is how you're dealing with that?
It's well, that is one of the limitations, because we're using one of the like consumer grade brain computer interfaces. Like Teresa has been wearing this headband all along. So the advantage of it is that it's super easy for like the average person to use. The disadvantage is like how much data you can collect is super limited, and the data that you do collect is super noisy. The company that produces these headbands, they have run like several studies on like the validation of this data, and there are a lot of things that you can't really do just because the signal quality is not that great, but there are some things that you can still do. So for example, they will run some studies where they have people like perform common mental tasks and compare the signal that you get wearing this headband versus like a research grade wet electrode EEG cap. And there are some like differences that are kind of like get lost in translation, but there is some differences that you can still use. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, sure. So that means that it's more like depending on the user also, right? So you have to retrain or basically recalibrate the sensor depending on the person, right? Is that correct? Or
Yeah, usually that's what happens, yeah.
Do you have like a procedure for doing that, or
do you mean
like getting so you put the sensor, right, and then you start getting information from there?
Right. So yeah, so you could go two different ways. Well, probably multiple different ways, but I'm just like gonna mention two ways you could go around it. You could either like look for some pattern that seems to be common across individuals, which is like kind of simple, but probably not the best way of control, which is like what we're doing with most of our experiences right now. But I think what higher grade experiences, because other people have worked in things like that before, and what they did is they usually in the beginning they'll have a calibration period, so like they will train your EEG data classifier during the first few minutes of like tutorials or something. Yeah.
Can you like move, for example, if you're like moving my forward and back and left and right, or is it two different states?
You could try to do anything, but given how limited the amount of data that we get, I think usually you try to stick to the simplest thing possible, which is like to try to discriminate between two possible inputs. But if one day someone creates an experience where you can just like move an object by thinking about where to move it, that would be awesome.
Are you interested in health and behavioral change and using these systems for stress relief and work like that?
We've thought about it like in the beginning when we first started out. It's definitely because I think most people who do work in this area, like the commercial grade EEG devices, that's the kind of work that's usually done with it, so using it for stress relief. Meditation is a big one. The whole reason why this headband was originally created was for meditation. So it's kind of like we've been staying out of it a little bit, mostly because it's sort of oversaturated and we wanted to see what else we can do. But it's not completely out of question.
So close.
You're having Bluetooth trouble?
Yeah. Like I connected it to, it's connected to the Muse, but it's not like scanning.
Thank you for your patience, everyone.
So what is the price of that sensor?
Sorry?
The price of that sensor?
I think it's like $300, which is, I guess, it is super cheap if you compare it to like an actual EEG headset.
What if we keep going and then also have room for the demos, like maybe either in the back or something like that?
Yeah.
That could
Or
actually
afterwards?
work. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Thank
so,
you.
Awesome. So please give it up for Donna.